We've all made financial choices that we're not proud of, but some are really expensive. In my case, tens of thousands of dollars. These happened years ago, but the lessons are still relevant today because it's not only about the tactics, like which account to put money into, which investments to pick, but also about adaptability and resourcefulness. If I were to encounter these decisions today, I would use very different tools, including some AI ones. So in this video, I want to share my 5 most expensive mistakes, the lessons I learned, and what I would do if I were in that situation today. The first expensive mistake is not doing my research when buying my first house. I kind of just picked a random agent that I met at an open house, the first one that I'd been to. I kind of just got talking to him and trusted him because he seemed nice. I didn't do any research. I didn't research the realtor. He was actually new to the field. He had very little experience, but I didn't know to look up reviews or ask him questions. I didn't interview anyone else. He gave me some questionable advice like, oh, you don't want to lowball the sellers because they might be offended. This was 2012, okay? The market should have been in my favor and I was in no rush. So really, I should have had all the bargaining power. The house that I did end up purchasing was lovely inside and I had so many good memories in it, and it was truly a blessing if you believe in that sort of stuff. But I definitely paid more for it than I really had to, and there was also this retaining wall in the back that made it really difficult to sell when it came time to sell. But it was my own fault for not researching the market. I didn't know how much the house was supposed to cost. If you're buying a house now, I would suggest taking a look at the different houses in the area and looking for comparable houses or comps. Gather information based on a certain number of bedrooms, bathrooms, what year the house is, what other amenities there are, how much a house goes for in that market over a period of a few months. You can use a spreadsheet to help you keep track, but as you do this over a period of time, you should be able to figure out just by looking at a house and some of the criteria how much it should cost and not be affected by whatever your agent tells you or not be affected by their list price, which could be high, could be low. It's just strategy. It means literally nothing. Not to sound too old and ornery and everyone is out here to get you, but there is a happy medium between very trusting and completely being cynical. My take is to trust and assume good intentions, but always verify. This mistake literally cost me tens of thousands of dollars, both in paying more when I bought the house and having a harder time when I sold. Nowadays, in general, with any financial decision, I always try to do my own research and compare that with expert opinion. For professionals to hire, like real estate agents, mortgage brokers, I always look at several options before making a commitment. Instead of feeling bad or rude for questioning people, I now understand this needs to be a mutually beneficial relationship for both parties. Sometimes it's just not a good fit, and that's okay. Specifically for incorporating technology, beyond your basic Redfin Zillow data or MLS, you can try using this AI prompt. You can use ChatGPT or Claude or whoever you like talking to. Summarize the last 5 years of housing price changes in the zip code, insert your zip code, and any local news that could affect property values. Within seconds, you should get a pretty good summary, and any relevant news in the area, like such and such big company is going there and there's a population increase, or this massive plant that hires half the town just shut down. All important things to know. Of course, always verify with public data. AI makes plenty of mistakes, but I tried this with my local zip code and it was actually pretty accurate. If I were buying today, I would use this as part of my initial background research. And if you're watching from the future, the lesson isn't the specific AI prompt to use. It's about taking these big purchases and big financial decisions very seriously, doing all the research, and utilizing whatever resources you have at the time. Mistake number 2 was not setting long-term goals. Meeting me now, you see Lydia the planner, but back in my youth, which is an undisclosed number of years ago, I just spent what I had. I never went into debt for once. That was a line that I never crossed. But if I had $1,000 for the month, after rent and essentials, I basically just spent the rest of it. There was no emergency fund, minimal savings. One surprise expense toward the end of college showed me how precarious that really was. Yeah, month to month I get by, I never went negative, but I was just one emergency repair, one unexpected expense away from needing to go into debt. I was extremely lucky to have my parents as my get out of jail free card, but it didn't feel good and I promised I would never be in that situation again. So I built an emergency fund and also started saving for future wants and needs. A house, retirement, a big wedding, or in our case, 3 weddings. I enjoyed every single one of them. Even on a $40,000 a year resident salary in high cost of living LA, I built up my emergency buffer and contributed to my 401k. The amount wasn't huge, but the time in the market mattered. Today, with how quickly industries can shift, this extra buffer isn't just for peace of mind. It is a really important cushion that buys you time in case you need to pivot unexpectedly. Mistake number 3 is buying dumb stuff or lifestyle inflation or whatever you want to call it. A quick disclaimer, of course, your spending can go up when you make more. It is okay to allow yourself to enjoy more expensive things if you can afford it. My mistake was more general shopping without a clear intention. Going from a resident to full pharmacist was a big income jump, and as a dual income no kids or DINK couple, suddenly so many purchases felt accessible. But just because you can doesn't mean you should, and that's what we needed to learn the hard way. Social media also didn't help. This was peak fashion and beauty YouTube era, and it normalized these huge collections and endless shopping for me. Add this to concerts, restaurants, travel, all the other things that we enjoy, and a vinyl collection, the sky kind of felt like the limit. To be completely transparent, I had a great time. I enjoyed all of those experiences. But here is what I've learned after spending thousands of dollars on unnecessary stuff and experiences. First of all, we could have easily spent half as much, bought half the stuff, and been just as happy. We have since decluttered a lot of our belongings and there is still more to go. But the second bigger lesson is about unconscious social pressure. I never thought I was trying to keep up with the Joneses, but I was definitely influenced by what felt normal. Amongst our friendship circles, when everyone's talking about trying that new restaurant or the trip that they took, or what outfit they're planning for an event, it creates this baseline of what seems normal to spend, even if you're not actively trying to be like any of them. The thing is, you don't know what is funding other people's lifestyle. They might just be really wealthy, or they might be going into debt and making crazy choices. Or maybe they just prioritize different things. They dress to the nines, but they actually don't care about travel and don't have any expenditure on that. Today, that pressure can be even sneakier with social media. Algorithms feeding you very tailored ads, influencers making luxury seem normal. You're seeing lifestyles of people who wouldn't normally even be in your day-to-day circle at all. And subconsciously, that is altering what you perceive as societal norms. The lesson here is not to be some hermit and never do anything fun. It's just about being intentional. Instead of dressing up a certain way or expecting 2 international trips per year because that's just what people do, think carefully about what matters to you and what is within your affordable range. Also, instead of buying 5 sale items that are good enough, buy the one actual thing that you really want and fits the bill perfectly. Applying it to experiences, pick out the special restaurant that you really, really want to go to and make it a special day instead of having 5 okay meals out of convenience when you really didn't care for it. And lastly, pay attention to how your environment, your real life circles, or even internet strangers like myself are influencing your spending, because that influence is real even when it's very subconscious. Mistake number 4 is failing to look into the backdoor Roth, the 529, and the 457B. This one really stings because I literally left money on the table for years. I thought I was being responsible. I was contributing to my 401k. I had an HSA. I was doing all the things I thought. But when it came to the Roth IRA, I just assumed I wasn't eligible based on income, and that was that. I never considered looking to it further. I didn't know about the backdoor Roth. And when I finally figured it out, this was years down the road. And it really stings thinking about all the tax-free growth that I could have been enjoying for years. I also didn't really look into the kids' 529 accounts and how much of it would be state tax deductible. Honestly, I kind of just ignored it, thinking, isn't this kind of similar to some of the other tax advantage accounts? What is the difference? Why bother with it? The reason to bother with it is A Roth, while similar in the tax advantages, will not be enough for college. A lot of the other retirement accounts won't be accessible yet by the time the kids need this money. And also there is a deduction for at least our state for state income tax. Last one, I had no idea what a 457B was. Turns out through my work, I had this whole other retirement account where I can put in pre-tax money similar to a 403B, but it would be on top of that 401k or 403B limit. But maxing out beyond maxing out isn't even the main point, because after I had kids, I was no longer maxing out any of this anyway. But the main reason why this is so useful and so overpowered in my situation is because I could access it when I leave my job, regardless of my age, which matches up way better with an early retirement goal than the traditional 403B. Had I known about this, I probably would have contributed a little differently, especially in the beginning of my career. I know all the specifics of my situation is not going to apply to everyone else. And the lesson here is not about which specific accounts, is that financial illiteracy literally costs money. Take the time to research what benefits and accounts are available to you specifically. Don't just assume things. Talk to HR, talk to your accountant, or even just Google and figure out how things work. This is even more important today with the constant new policy changes, new financial products that I feel like are intentionally confusing, new asset classes. Just not knowing something can be really expensive and honestly is no longer acceptable. Mistake number 5 is not being open-minded to anything beyond the boring basics. To be clear, I am not saying you should abandon all the fundamentals. I personally still treat that as the foundation, as the base of my strategy. But once I had that solid base, I made the mistake of thinking that was all there was. I had this pretty narrow view of what good financial decisions look like. And to give credit, I think they were solid teachings from my parents. But I think there are many ways to climb a mountain, and I just didn't see the different paths beyond the one I knew. A great example was when I was selling that house with that annoying retaining wall. The thought of turning it into a rental instead briefly crossed my mind. But I just looked at the cash flow, rent minus whatever mortgage, didn't do any research on the rent, by the way, minus property taxes, repairs, and I thought, a small chunk of money for all that hassle, plus I would have to pay at the highest income tax rate for that extra income, not worth it. But I completely missed the full picture. I didn't think about the depreciation and all the write-offs that would come to mitigate that extra income. I didn't think about it from the angle of diversification of different asset classes, different investments, or just having different income streams. And I overlooked the equity that would get built and the appreciation of the property value as my mortgage gets paid down each month at a crazy low interest rate, by the way. Same thing with this YouTube channel. I actually thought of starting a YouTube channel like a whole decade ago. At the time, I had a travel blog and a bunch of other content ideas, but I just never took the step. It wasn't even out of fear or lack of time. This was before kids, so I had all the time in the world. Honestly, it was just this high-ish income earner blind spot where I would think, why would I spend so much time on this passion project that could maybe earn $100 in a few months if I'm lucky, when I could just pick up an extra shift at work and make way more than that. But that's hourly rate thinking, not wealth building / income stream generating thinking. I didn't see it as a long-term business play. I wasn't thinking about the skills that I would learn along the way or consider the passive income potential. Look, I know millennials get criticized for trying to monetize every single hobby, and I'm not telling you to turn everything into a side hustle, but there is a healthy balance between just completely ignoring opportunities and overdoing it and turning every enjoyable life moment into a monetizable transaction. The main lesson here is just to stay curious. Don't assume that the basic path is the only path. I'm not saying everyone should go start an Airbnb and make a YouTube channel. It's got its own risks and a learning curve. But what I am saying is once you have a good foundation for financial habits, keep learning, whether it's real estate, businesses, other asset classes, all the technological and geopolitical changes and how it might impact you. Learn enough to make a proper informed decision. Looking back on the past decade plus, those were the biggest, most expensive mistakes I have made. And I guess zooming out, there are two main lessons that I'm taking from this. The obvious one is that financial literacy is not just some nice to have, it literally pays. But the second thing is I wouldn't necessarily trade any of those experiences that led to the mistakes I made and therefore the lessons I learned. The goal isn't to optimize every single dollar and live like a monk in your 20s. It's to be intentional with your money so that it can support the life that you actually want to live, both in the present and in the future. Sometimes that means spending on the things that bring you joy. Sometimes it means being smarter about the really boring stuff so that you can enjoy more freedom later. And sometimes, like in today's video, it means making the ridiculous mistakes and learning from them. I did my best then, but my best has evolved, and that's how it should be. I'm curious, what is one financial decision that you have made that you're not entirely proud of? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. I hope you're having a good day, and I will talk to you again soon. Bye!